The first TED Talks presentation I watched was called "The Problem with Plastics and How They're Changing the Environment," with plastics researcher and speaker Patricia Villarrubia Gomez. The main point of the speaker's presentation is to inform the audience about the problems with plastic and how they are changing the environment. She discusses how plastics are not only a waste management problem, but a climate problem as well, and how the issue of plastic production and waste needs to be considered from a systemic problem, or from a systemic perspective, addressed from production to consumption to disposal. The speaker is qualified to present on this topic because she has been investigating plastic pollution for, quote, about a decade, and because she is also a consumer who tries to align her personal choices as a consumer with the aspirations of her research. Not much specific verbal support, for instance, oral citations, are offered. She does say that, quote, studies indicate that if nothing is done, the production of single-use plastic alone will contribute to more than 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions by 2050, end quote. Evidence Gomez offers to support her claims are that she states that today, quote, the total mass of plastic is twice the total mass of all living organisms on the planet, end quote. She informs us that there are many different kinds of plastic, each one the result of a different chemical formula. And she says that, quote, we know that this is incompatible with staying in safe operating space for humanity, end quote. Facts provided include for 99% of all plastics, their starting point is fossil fuel hydrocarbons. Oil, gas, and coal are extracted and refined to produce plastic and other synthetic chemicals. She says that, quote, earlier this year, representatives from over 170 nations at the UN Environmental Assembly adopted an initiative to end plastic pollution, committing all these countries to participate in creating, by 2024, a legally binding agreement that addresses the full life cycle of plastics from production to design to disposal, end quote. Within the presentation, types of persuasive appeals used are largely pathos. She appeals to our emotions with her sense of urgency and the impactful weight of her speech. She uses dramatic pauses and commanding body language for effect and to introduce information in a way that gives her words weight and the level of seriousness it deserves. Gomez also uses the method of logos by cataloging the issues and effects on the environment clearly and concisely, which allows the listeners to logically conclude that changes are undeniably a necessity. I think this presentation was intended for consumers of plastic and people who don't know how bad plastic production and pollution are for the environment. Those who might benefit the most from watching or listening include people who are concerned with the environmental impact of plastics, and perhaps even more, people who are unaware or unconcerned about the changes in our environment caused by plastic. The main points of discussion were the reality of plastic recycling and waste management and how ineffective it is, what happens when plastic breaks down, the types of gases released and the negative impacts of these toxic gases, as well as the risk of microplastics contaminating the environment. Also, how invasive microplastics are in all facets of the environment, disrupting ecologies from the polar ice caps to marine ecological systems, and how this will affect human biology. She also offers reassurance that there are solutions at her conclusion. She describes how worldwide entrepreneurs and companies are creating solutions that can substitute for single-use plastics. She mentions how people are being educated on how to reduce their plastic footprint and how global leaders are pressuring policymakers to enact stronger policies that systematically address the problems of plastic. I think that other viewpoints which should be considered or included are how people can get involved from a consumer level and what the realistic outlook is for our planet if these issues are not soon addressed.